Welcome to Potter Revisited, Episode 9. Today we are discussing Chapter 9 of Philosopher's Stone, The Midnight Duel, or as we have decided to call it.
Being a Gryffindor sounds exhausting.
This is a shorter chapter, but we will probably talk your guys' ears off, as we do.
That's what we do.
Moving into our first section, you were wondering, how helpful is a remembrall?
I mean, because it lets you know you've forgotten something, which is real swell, but it does not let you know what you've forgotten, which, I mean, that's what Neville says. But it's true. Like, there's always, at any given time, lots of things I'm probably forgetting, and some of them are important, and some of them aren't. You know? Like, I don't remember the password to my login for my student account on the website for my college, but it's okay because it's saved. So as long as I sign into my computer through my, that login, it's saved and it's fine, but I've forgotten it, you know? So my remembrall would always be glowing that I've forgotten things, but it wouldn't help me because what if the thing I forgot is to pick up milk and I'm at the grocery store now?
Yep, that's happened to me so many times.
Like, I just think it's unhelpful.
I feel like it's annoying because it's like, you've forgotten something, but since it won't tell you what you've forgotten, you're just going to be driving yourself crazy because you're like, I forgot, what am I forgetting? Because I always had that feeling.
And it could be something ridiculous, like it was your uncle's birthday 3 days ago, but you don't really call your uncle on his birthday anyway, so...
Not just poor Neville. I knew they're trying to help him, but... Oof. So rough.
Yeah. It's not good for Neville's self-esteem to be reminded that he forgets things a lot.
So when Harry imagines himself getting expelled, and he's all worried he doesn't want to go back to the Dursley, so he's like, oh, maybe Hagrid would keep me on and train me as an assistant. And I'm just like the image of Harry as like this assistant gameskeeper. It's so funny.
I mean, it's cute. I mean, clearly it's an option. I mean, he doesn't know yet that Hagrid got that job from being expelled, right?
Well, he knows Hagrid was expelled, and he knows he lives there. So he just doesn't want to go home.
Okay, so he probably thinks like, this is the only job I know of for students who are expelled from Hogwarts. But also, I could see Harry being perfectly happy with that life. He gets to hang out on campus.
I think the only thing he doesn't like is that he'd have to see Ron and Hermione and Neville all become wizards, or he couldn't, and his wannabe snapped. So that's the part where he's like, "Oh, that sucked." But he really doesn't want to go back to the Dursleys, so he's already thinking about like his backup plan.
Yeah, he could just live in the Forbidden Forest, build himself a tree house. That's what I would do. I would build myself a tree house. Become friends with the unicorns and the centaurs. It's an option, right?
So when Harry also gets found out and he gets in trouble, and he's thinking about he's getting like sent to see McGonagall and everything, or McGonagall said that she's going to get wood. He thinks it's like corporal punishment. It's kind of like shocked me because that's not something like we grew up with. And this book came out in like 1998, and I don't know if my parents ever had that, but it's just like so crazy to me rereading this, and I was like, holy shit, Harry thinks he's gonna get beaten with like a wooden stick or something?
Well, I think like even in like my parents' generation at school, teachers would like whack you with a ruler.
Yeah.
And I guess rulers were wooden back then because nothing was plastic. So like maybe it's child abuse, don't do it. But also maybe that was a common thing. But also I feel like especially at British private schools, I feel like it was probably even more so. Like they probably had a special stick just for that.
Yeah. Oh my, it's so crazy to me reading this because I was like, we always assumed this took place in the 90s, and I always thought the 90s was like, I wouldn't assume like corporal punishment in the 90s, but I guess like it's also written in a British boarding school, so who knows like what they did in boarding schools.
Yeah, I mean like I know people who were students in the time where teachers could hit their students with sticks or whatever. So that's a thing. But yeah, I guess it was a thing for Harry. I remember when they were trying to convince people that Harry was going to that other school and dyeing his clothes gray and everything, they mentioned that they had a stick for beating at that school. So I guess it is a semi-regular thing.
Mm-hmm.
And Hogwarts used to hang kids upside down from their fingers or their toes.
Jesus.
So clearly all the schools participated in the abuse of children.
Yep, pretty crazy.
Yeah. Oh, I think I brought this up last episode, but Peeves and whether or not he's chaotic neutral or chaotic evil. But in hindsight, he's just chaotic neutral because, I mean, until like the Battle of Hogwarts where he does lean towards the side of good, but not so much because it's the good side as like Hogwarts is his home and he doesn't have the patience for a bunch of assholes running around in it. But I think Peeves is definitely a chaotic neutral creature.
Yeah, he doesn't really have a side. He just kind of like is chaotic and it doesn't matter who it is to him. Well, then we get the surprise that wood is actually not a cane that he's going to be beaten with. It is actually a person.
That's funny. That's a conveniently chosen name for that.
Yeah.
You know, good. That's humorous. I think probably my favorite thing about this entire chapter is Ron and him telling Harry that if nothing comes out of his wand, he should just punch Draco. Because, like, yes.
I mean, Ron probably knows because Ron's grown up with, like, 5 brothers, 6 brothers.
Yeah, he knows.
It's great advice. Especially because Ron does get into a fist fight with Draco later in the series.
And it's funny because, Ron, as the pure blood wizarding world raised, the last thing you'd expect out of him is like, well, if the magic isn't working, just... Like, it's really kind of throws you off the first time you read it. You're like, oh, they do that too? Like, that wizards also know how to punch people? Okay. It's very, it's cute. And it's humorous. And good on you, Ron.
And Ron's so funny, being like, I'll be his second.
In case you die.
Harry's like, what? Am I gonna die? Harry's like, what? And he's like, oh, you're not gonna die, don't worry. Just thinks it sounds cool.
I really think it's super heartwarming that Harry's so happy with flying when he realizes there's something in the magical world and in the world as a whole that just comes naturally to him. Like, I feel like he tries, maybe not in school, but generally he's trying really hard to fit in, to get along with people, to blend in. And flying is the first time that he's just like, oh, I can do this. Like, I'm just good at this thing. And I think it's...
Like, he has a lot of people telling him that he's going to be great. Like, Hagrid, when he meets him, he's like, oh, you're going to be a great wizard. Your parents were great. And so he feels like, especially being famous, he has a lot to live up to. And the classes are hard. Like, he does, like, he finds them difficult. Like, he does well. You know, he's, like an average student. He does, like, maybe above average in some classes. But this is the first thing where he doesn't have to really think or try really hard. It's just, like, he's good. It's, like, a natural thing. And maybe it kind of sinks into him that, like, this is where he's meant to be, because he has a lot of anxieties about, like, where he belongs, especially in the wizarding world. And this is the first time where he's actually good at something that is related to the wizarding world. And it's also, like, nice that it comes from his dad, because he's been told that his dad's really great at Quidditch, and he's an amazing player. And so it's something that he can kind of, like, knows comes from his parents that he didn't really get to know.
I also think it's fun that flying is the thing that comes naturally to him, because that's sort of the most spectacular of all the magic things we've seen yet.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, I bet he's never been in a plane in his life, you know? And he's like, well, here I go.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Well, it's also that thing, too, it's just, like, he's already hearing people talk about, like, how much they fly. Like, he knows Ron's been on a broom before, Draco, like, flies all the time. And this is, like, one thing where, like, he doesn't think he'll be good at it. And then, surprisingly, he is. Like, it wasn't hard at all. And he's just kind of amazed. Like, yeah, so cute. I was just wondering, the way they teach first years to fly sounds very chaotic, and I don't know if it's kind of, like, right. Like, it's very dangerous, as we know, and it's just that there's a bunch of 11-year-olds on brooms that fly up, and there's so many of them in a class. I just feel like it's very chaotic, especially because you have different skill sets. Like, we know Draco has been flying for most of his life, and he's very good at it. Ron's also flown before, but then you have people like Neville, who's never flown before, Hermione, who is not from the wizarding world, who has never flown a broom before in her life and has no idea how to do it. And I just feel like it's like you have a lot of different skill sets, and like maybe it would have been better to separate them and have smaller sizes, because it's one teacher for all those kids, and obviously.
Yeah, at bare minimum, there should be 2 teachers, because in theory, they should have all the students lined up. They can all say up at the same time. And then one by one, each student should be, like, instructed to, like, lift up and then do a small circle and then land again, like, one at a time. And there should be 2 teachers there. So one teacher can fly up and catch that student if they're falling, while the other teacher watches the kids on the ground. Like, to me...
Except it reminds me of, like, anytime you do kind of, like, sports or something. Like, I took skiing lessons as a kid, and our class size was maybe like 3 or 4 kids to an instructor, because it is like kind of dangerous. Like, you could fall and hurt yourself. And even with skating too, like, they always had very small class sizes because it's a new skill and you want to help each person. I just feel like Madam Hooch isn't like able to like look after like this like, class, like 20 kids who were all on brooms.
In horseback riding, when you're a beginner, there's like 3 kids in your class with you, you know?
Yeah, it's just crazy to me. And speaking of, like, injuries and stuff, so Madam Hooch takes Neville to the hospital wing and, like, leaves her class. And I was wondering, like, why didn't she send a student to take him? And I know that they maybe didn't know where the hospital wing was, but it just seems like such a bad idea to leave, like, a class with all these brooms with a bunch of 11-year-olds and expect, like, nothing to happen.
Yeah, she's magic. Can't she, like, do a spell that makes all the brooms stick to the ground or something?
Yeah.
Like, there's a sticking spell that makes, like, the sole of your feet stick to the ground. She could stick all the kids' soles of their feet to the ground. She could stick the brooms. There's so many, like, magic options that could have prevented that. What ensues. But also, there's so many, like, basic teaching aspects. Like, again, having a second teacher out there. It seems a little bit... Asking another teacher to come out and supervise the kids while you go in. Like, you're magic. Send sparks up with your wand. There's so many valid options.
That's very crazy to me, because I don't remember. I'm pretty sure we weren't, at least at our school, we weren't allowed to leave. Like, you weren't allowed to leave an empty class. Like, when you were younger. Probably in high school, they didn't really care if they, like, went out to go get something or whatever. But I remember, like, if a teacher had to go somewhere, we had a teacher come in to, like, watch us, because we couldn't be unsupervised, because we were children and we were crazy.
Yeah. Even with safety scissors, we could do some damage.
Yeah.
I wonder a little bit, when it comes to Harry's quick ability to fly, I wonder if part of it is that when the first part of flying is staying up, and a lot of the kids were struggling, so there was less pressure for him to just be good. Like, it was like, oh, so most people suck at this, so this is fine.
Mm-hmm.
And he was so distracted sort of like by the idea of flying that he didn't really pay attention, and it happened. And then once the up went so smoothly for him, he was suddenly like, it was a confidence thing, because he's like, oh, that worked for me. I feel good about this.
Well, it's also he said that he felt it. Like, he had this feeling in him. Like, when he held the broom, he felt like he had this feeling go through him where it was like, he was meant to do it. So it definitely was just, like, this whole thing.
I think maybe he just doesn't like performing.
Yeah.
Like, he almost has stage fright when he thinks he's, like, being tested or watched. But when he finally actually flies, he isn't, like, showing the teacher he can fly or proving to us. He's, like, not focusing on flying. He's focusing on getting back to Draco and, like, getting the remembrall from Draco. And it's almost like Harry's maybe one of his bigger blockades to, like, excelling as a student in a lot of ways is his own nervousness and his own self-consciousness, that in moments like this where he's not really thinking about whether or not he succeeds or fails or looks good, and he's just, oh, I want that, that's when he's the best. Very much the opposite of Hermione. Like, Hermione's very, like, I need to think things through. I'm not good in the moment. I'm not going to remember. I know everything, but I might not remember it in a panic. And Harry's like, I know nothing. Oh, wait a minute. It's on fire. I know the thing.
Yeah, it's definitely, just the way Harry is. But moving on to after Harry gets sent to McGonagall, and Wood is a person, not a stick, McGonagall makes this huge exception for Harry to play on the Quidditch team so they can win, purely because of competition. She even says that she wants the Quidditch Cup back in Gryffindor. She doesn't want Snape to have it anymore. And we know McGonagall, being the super strict teacher, would never bend the rules for anything. But she's so competitive that she bends the rules for Quidditch. And just a very interesting insight to her character.
It is. She really takes Quidditch seriously. She was a Quidditch player, so she probably has a lot of, like, personal, emotional connection to Gryffindor Quidditch. I think maybe a part of it also is, it's not just, oh, you're good at Quidditch, oh, good, the Gryffindors. It might also be a little bit like, Harry Potter is always going to have eyes on him. We might as well give him an opportunity to, like, feel like they're on him for the right reasons. You know what I mean? Everyone's going to be looking at you all the time. We might as well, like, have you do something. So when people look at you, you can say, are they looking at me because my parents were murdered? Or are they looking at me because I did so well in the game last night? It's like she's, I don't know.
She also seems very excited. And I also was wondering if it's because she has the connection that James is a really good Quidditch player. And she's just very excited that Harry's also a really good Quidditch player. Since there's that connection there. And I'm assuming that McGonagall and James had at least something going on, because we know that he was very good at Transfiguration, so he was probably one of her favorites.
Had something going on. Oh, there's a theory. There's the theory.
Yeah. Oh, woo, no. I just meant that he was a very good student in Transfiguration, and so McGonagall probably admired him. And we know at the beginning of the book that she really did care for Lily and James, and she was very upset that they were gone.
Yeah.
So I feel like she's just very happy that she can kind of, like, see that being passed on from James to Harry.
It's good. I think, yeah, she definitely did not have an affair with James Potter, Tori. Stop insinuating these blasphemous things about Minerva McGonagall. You said it, not me.
I'd never. It's not what I meant. Alright, we already talked about Ron punching Draco in the nose at some point. So, moving on to Hermione having no social skills.
Yeah. Yeah, none whatsoever. I mean, she's very annoying, and, like, I'm annoyed with her in this chapter. I'm like, can you just leave them alone? Like, mind your own business.
Yeah, as Hermione, having Hermione's favorite character is difficult because you just forget in earlier books, like, how socially inept she is. And, yeah, I'm reading it and I'm like, why are you bothering them so much? Like, why do you care so much?
Meanwhile, having Snape as a favorite character is not difficult whatsoever, I swear.
I mean, I feel like you chose that for yourself. You made it that way.
Yeah, Hermione is... It's a big difference. Hermione goes so far from being like, oh gosh, her, to being like, yes, her, you know? Mm-hmm. Like, you really... It's a very believable progression that Hermione goes through, I think. You can see how that bossy, annoying little child can become the woman Hermione becomes. And I feel like a lot of people that you like and respect as adults were probably Brad's as children, or really annoying, or... So it's good that she's not just delightful from the get-go. She's human, you know?
Yeah. She definitely grows, especially a lot in this book, as she realizes to relax a little bit, because she's so, like, concerned about, like, what everyone will think and, like, what's the right thing to do, but it's just, like, she is so involved in everyone else's life, like, what everyone else is doing, that I feel she's not really, that she's maybe not aware, or maybe she is aware, but, like, how well she's not doing socially, but she kind of, like, is protecting herself with just, like, being so overly involved in everyone else. But it's not the same as, like, being friends. Since we know Hermione doesn't really have... Like, everyone's kind of paired off at this point, except Hermione and maybe Neville. And Hermione and Neville hang out more so because they're kind of put together because they both don't have... They're, like, their one best friend, like everyone else has.
I also think that maybe Hermione is, like, she doesn't know how to make friends. So she thinks, if I provide a service, or if I help people... in a way they can't help themselves, that's how they'll like me. Mm-hmm. So she's kind of like, oh, the problem these people have is they get into trouble. They will like me if I show them how not to get into trouble, which is going about things entirely the wrong way. But in her mind, she's like, everybody wants to be the best versions of themselves. Yeah. If I point out what they're doing that is not good and tell them how to do better, they will like me because they're growing as people, you know? Like, I just don't think she... realizes how obnoxious that is, but I think in her mind, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, like, she's so meddlesome.
Yeah.
So, because, like, Harry and Ron have this whole thing with Draco, and she's like, you can't do that. And they're like, what, but who the hell are you? Like, what's alone? And she's like, I'm gonna tell your brother Percy. And she's just, like, because she's so involved with them, she ends up, like, screwing herself over. She gets locked out of the common room.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just because she's so meddlesome, and, like, maybe part of her wants to, like, dissuade them from doing it, because I think Hermione really takes in Gryffindor being, like, a home, especially because she's left her family to come here, and she wants to win the House Cup, and she's very much drink the Kool-Aid about, like, everything that involves being in Gryffindor, and yeah, she kind of screws herself over, but yeah, she is so meddlesome and socially inept, and it's hard to read, but we do know that she grows as a person.
Yeah. I guess being a busybody maybe is also a little bit an extent part of her not having friends. She was like, I don't have anything going on because no one interacts with me. I don't have friends. So I need to be interested and involved with humans in some way. So I'm going to, like, insert myself into other people's situations just to kind of feel a part of something. But she also is so strict on her own morals that she inserts herself to be like, don't do this. But no one wants that.
Yeah, it's definitely a way to, like, kind of, like, fit in, because she has social interaction during classes, but then she probably sees during their downtime everyone else is kind of, like, we know Parvati and Lavender have already paired off, and I don't think Hermione at this point has a lot in common with them. And so she just hangs with Neville, but, like, she wants to be involved and have, like, I feel like every 11-year-old wants to have, like, you need someone to talk to. So she's involved with everyone, and she in her way is thinking that she's helpful when really she's just really annoying.
And it's funny because she so, like, tries to keep people in the lines and, like, thinks things through, and yet goes about it in the most Gryffindor possible way.
Of course.
Like, she's like, I know this will end badly, so I'm going to stop it, which is good and very thought out and, like, okay, well. And then she's like, and I'm going to do it by rushing into this without really thinking about it and telling them how it is, and there will be no repercussions, and they will all be grateful. So it's like, even when she's, like, doing something kind of Ravenclaw, she goes about it in the Gryffindor way.
Of course. So you have, why does Hermione go along with Ron and Harry and then Neville? Is she trying to make friends, or is she worried about getting into trouble? Maybe it's kind of both.
Yeah. I think at the beginning, she just wants to have everyone follow the script she's already written in her head about how things are supposed to go, which is, we follow the rules, we do well, we learn our best at school, we win the house cup. Like, this story she's written in her mind. And every time someone goes off script, she's basically just saying, no, that's not how I've written it. Actually, you don't sneak out at night, you go to bed, you sleep well, you wake up well rested, you eat a balanced breakfast, and you go to class ready to learn. And so anytime someone goes off script, she's like, no, I need to pull you back into what I have planned for you, despite the fact that I am not really a part of your life. This is what you should be doing. So at the beginning, I think it's that. She's trying to get them back on script. And again, the Gryffindor in her doesn't sort of see how inserting herself will end poorly and be the opposite of what she's trying to do. Which is why Hermione sort of, through most of the books, despite being the smartest, she's never the best in, like, the heat of the moment. Because if she's scripted something through and thought it out and planned it out and studied for that moment, she's going to kick everybody's ass. But as soon as it goes off of what she's expected, she becomes rattled and she doesn't remember that she does in fact know how to handle the situations.
Yeah, she doesn't do well under pressure.
She's just like, wait, I didn't write it that way. How do I access the information, you know? Yeah, so I think that's how she gets herself sort of involved with Harry and Ron, especially in this chapter, is just trying to get them back onto the script in the script she's written about how things are to go, and she just doesn't know how to go about it.
I just feel bad for Neville, because Neville got his wrist fixed and was told to go back to his common room. He couldn't remember the password, so he's just stuck out there all night. Like, did no one, like, come between the point where he went back to the common room and he couldn't remember the password? And, like, I just feel bad for him. This poor guy is just, like, not having a good 2 weeks.
Yeah, I guess, like, yeah, in my mind, he, like, knocks on the portrait, hoping there's someone in the common room, but everyone's up in the dorms, and so he, like, waits and then knocks again, like, hey, someone want to let me in? But, like, everyone's in the dorms, so they don't hear him knocking in the common room, and it's another example of, like, poorly thought out sort of entrances to common rooms, where it's like, if the password expires at midnight, I get that the point of that is also to encourage students to stay in their bedrooms past curfew, but it forgets the fact that students don't always follow the rules, and, like, he's at risk.
Yeah.
Dangerous things happen in the halls of Hogwarts at night. Like,
yeah, no.
And he's a first year trapped out there alone. Like, are there, like, is Filch the only one that wanders the hallway at night? Like, there should be some...
I'm pretty sure that aren't the prefects supposed to, like, not at night. I think they do it. They stay up some point. Like, I don't know, prefects walk around to, like, make sure things in order, but I'm sure the teachers probably have some kind of, like, duty where they have to, like...
hall monitor duty?
Yeah.
Because, like, we catch Snape walking around the hallways at night, but, like, he's a shady guy. He's doing Snape things. He's not seeking out people to punish. He's got his own dark and mysterious shenanigans afoot. I think maybe, like, a good idea would have been to, like, paint a portrait of somebody and put one of them in the hallway next to the entranceway and one of them inside the common room, or maybe in one of the dormitories. Like, maybe the dormitory where the prefect sleeps has a particular portrait of someone, and they have another portrait on the wall. So if you get knocked out, you can say, hello, portrait of Whimsical, please tell the other portrait that I need to be let in. Like, that seems like a basic wizard-level security that they probably should have had.
Mm-hmm. Poor guy. Well, moving on, we had the beginning of the Harry-Draco rivalry, which is a big part of the series, especially as they start to grow up. So the whole scene of them getting into the trophy room and then Malfoy tricked him and then ending up meeting Fluffy is, like, one of my favorite scenes. And I wish that had been in the movie. Like, the way they did it in the movie was good. But just, like, this whole, like, wild goose chase, realizing they've been set up, and then, like, accidentally being forced to meet Fluffy is just, like, the way it was written. and everything. Like, it was very exciting and so many twists and turns.
Yeah. First of all, I love it as a Slytherin because that is such a clever and conniving and devious thing. Like, oh, I'm going to, like, taunt him into breaking the rules and then not break the rules myself and have a good laugh about it. Like, I not only win, but I didn't have to fight him and I don't get in trouble. Like, it's very devious, and I can, as much as Draco's a little asshat and I don't like him, it's clever. I will say it's a clever.
Well, but Malfoy, I think, kind of knows that he's not evenly matched. And so even, like, all the things that happen with Harry and Draco, like, he knows Harry's probably stronger than him. So Malfoy's always doing things to, like, undermine him. And it's always plans that, like, get him in trouble. But, like, he never, like, really physically fights Harry.
But I feel like it's interesting because at this point in the novels, in a duel, Draco would win. Harry has learned no spells. He has done no magic. Draco probably, I mean, not saying he's an exceptionally gifted wizard, he's a child, but growing up in the wizarding world and having the parents he's had, I'm sure there's a couple basic spells that Draco might know. You know what I mean? He has a better, he's heard more spells at least. He probably has a better chance of beating Harry at a wizard duel at this point.
I just think it shows that Malfoy's not as confident as he portrays he is. Like, he talks big and he has his goons behind him. But when it comes down to it, even though he knows he probably would win, he's still not confident enough to go through with it. So he just rather go behind his back and set him up.
I feel like even if Draco was like 85% confident, he knows one spell and Harry knows none, so he's got this. I feel like Draco's ego and like the version of himself he shows to people couldn't handle losing a duel, which is why he didn't partake in one. He's like, the off chance that I lose, it's really going to screw up how people view me, and I want to be viewed in this way. So it was too risky for him and his persona to, like, take that chance. But still, like, what exactly did Harry think he was going to do in this duel? Like, he does not know any spells. And, like, yes, Ron said, like, drop your wand and punch him. Okay, but then you're having a fist fight. You're not having a duel. And you don't know if Draco knows spells. Like, what was going to happen if this duel had happened? Part of me...
Ron is just a very Gryffindor.
Yeah.
He's just a hype man. Ron's like, we were like he said that we're having a duel, so, like, we can't back down, because we have to do it, and we have to do it no matter what. And, yeah, Ron is just very much like a wing it kind of person. He's like, okay, we'll see what he does, and if we can't beat him with a spell, we're just gonna throw our wands away and we're gonna punch him in the face.
Yeah. It's just...
Ron's still hype man, but it's just so funny.
I feel like not Gryffindors in that situation as a first years who don't know spells would like spend the evening studying their textbooks to try and learn one or two basic dueling spells. Like they would try, you know what I mean? They would put in the forethought to be like, we don't know anything, let's try and learn something real quick. But they're so Gryffindor, they're like, we're all gonna figure it out. I'll be fine.
I think this kind of solidifies, like, Harry and Ron's friendship, too. Like, they've only known each other for 2 weeks, but Ron's like, I'm gonna be your second, and he's giving him advice, and...
If you die, don't worry, I'll fight for you.
Yeah, Ron kind of knows it's like they don't know any spells or whatever, but he's just kind of like, he's in it to the end no matter what, and it's just, like, the loyalty he has already. I love Harry and Ron's friendship. They're, like, to the bitter end.
Yeah.
So you have Draco manipulating Harry when he's more ego-based, and Hermione is more effective at when he's more moral.
Oh, yeah. So basically, Draco can manipulate Harry using Harry's ego by acting like he's better than Harry and be like, oh, you have to prove yourself as brave, you have to prove yourself as strong. And that's how Draco manipulates. But when Hermione manipulates, which she does quite effectively, not so much yet, but it's always more of a moral manipulation. It's just interesting to see how, like, both of them have at times manipulated Harry, but they go about it from a different way. And they both have been quite successful at it. But it's neat to see that different manipulation styles and sort of also how they both manipulate Harry based on something that they understand more. Like, ego is very important to Draco. Like, how he's seen and perceived is very important. So he uses that against Harry, but Hermione being seen as a good person who follows the rules is more important to her, so she manipulates Harry based on that. It's interesting.
I think we kind of see, like, Hermione is more manipulative and she just understands a lot more than I think you realize at the beginning, or, like, even other people realize. Like, we have to get through in the series, like, she does things that benefit her, and she kind of, like, makes it work to, like, her advantage.
That's the Slytherin in Hermione Granger. I just find... When you sit there and you read this chapter, it is pretty ridiculous to realize that Harry decides to sneak out and get in a fight the same night he thinks he's going to have been expelled for flying. Like, he goes from, like, I'm going to be expelled, my life is over, will Hagrid take me on as an apprentice, to, like, I'll just sneak out and get in a fight. I'm like, being a Gryffindor honestly sounds so exhausting. Like, anytime there's like, oh yeah, you think you can, they have to be like, yeah, and then just run into it with no forethought. And it's so tiring. I mean, maybe it's less tiring if that's the person you are, but from my perspective, it's exhausting and stressful, and oh my goodness. I couldn't do it. I couldn't live that Gryffindor life.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I actually kind of forgot it was the day he got expelled. It's like the same day. So he has like his day, and then he thinks he's gonna get expelled, and his like dread, and he doesn't get expelled and gets told he's gonna be on the Quidditch team, which is like this like crazy moment. And it's like he's probably still like living that high when Draco tries to get him in trouble, and he's like, nothing else can go wrong. I mean, he's like, I already faced this.
Yeah, honestly, maybe it's a little bit Minerva McGonagall rewarded bad behavior. So now he's like, last time I broke the rules, I got to be on the Quidditch team. I wonder what's going to happen this time I break the rules. Because as of now, all I do is get rewarded when I break the rules. He could have been a lot more of a brat than he ends up being later in the novels. Just based on, like, some of the earlier...
So I was wondering, just now, so we know that Fluffy's, like, hidden in the room, and I was just wondering, was it, like, dumb of Dumbledore just to have the room locked with, like, Alohomora? Like, I feel like they should have had it sealed better, because they don't even intend to go there. It's by accident. They're just trying to hide, and so they get into it, because Alohomora is a level 1 spell. So it's just like anyone could go in there. Like, Dumbledore tells them not to, but they don't know where they are. They get lost, so they end up there by accident.
Yeah, if you could accidentally get into the secret, hidden, overly well-protected chamber, it is not very well protected.
Yeah.
Like, and again, they're first years. It's a first-year spell. So, like, it's impressive that Hermione knows it, because it's pretty early on in the school year. But second years, third years, fourth years, like, all the other students know Alohomora is basic. They could all, and you know Fred and George probably heard, don't go on the floor and open this door, and they're like, so, do you want to get some snacks and then go to that floor and open that door? Like...
Exactly.
I can't imagine how they thought that would be effective.
Yeah, this school is a nightmare.
I mean, unless, again, Dumbledore made it something that they could get through because he wanted Harry to have that chance against Voldemort in his first year, you know? But unless it was intentional for that purpose.
Yeah, it's just so crazy to think about. And then we have Hermione's classic line where she's like, we could have been killed, or worse, expelled. Hermione doesn't care about death.
She's fearless. I just think it's the way...
All she cares about is her permanent record.
Yeah, it's the way her priorities are. Like, being expelled is, like, shameful. It means you weren't a good enough student. It meant you didn't follow the rules. You were a bad person because you broke rules. But death, you know? Like, you don't have to feel the shame of being expelled if you're dead.
Yeah. Hermione lost in the face of death. She doesn't care. All she cares about is her permanent record.
As long as the GPA is golden.
But it could be her sense of belonging, too. Like, this is the first place where she knows she's supposed to be here. So being sent away would be really shameful to her. And she doesn't really care if she dies. She's like, I just can't be sent away because, like, the shame.
Yeah.
And, like, she has so much, like, she puts so much worth in, like, what she's doing.
Yeah. It's the Gryffindor pride. It's the pride, it's the bravery, it's...
Yep, Gryffindor pride strikes again.
As much as people like to always argue that Hermione's, like, if she wasn't a Gryffindor, she would be a Ravenclaw, but there's so much of all of the houses in Hermione. Like, they all display all of the houses, but it's really nice to see Hermione be a true Gryffindor, and it's really nice to notice Hermione's Slytherin moments, and it just goes back to the importance of all of the traits in all of the houses, and... Hermione might have had an easier time doing a lot of things if she'd fostered some of her Slytherin traits a little bit more, because there's lots of times where Hermione is right and no one listens to her and they end up in trouble. It's kind of like if she'd fostered her manipulation skills a little bit more, she might have just saved them all the trouble.
Oh yeah, I forgot. I had a theory about Neville that I forgot to write down. It's about Neville and just like his memory loss. I remember reading a theory. It might have been on MuggleNet, like before the last book came out, because everyone had theories about Neville and like how much he'd be involved because he could have been the chosen one. And I think someone mentioned that because Neville has always had really bad memory, but we're like, was that always a thing? Because we know that when his parents died, he was a baby too. So I think the theory was
when his parents were, when they were attacked, you mean?
were tortured, that maybe he was there and he saw something, and we learned about memory charms and like how it can affect people. So what if someone either good or someone bad didn't want him to remember something, so they cast a memory charm on him, and that's what it affected his memory.
Wow.
And so it was assumed that maybe it would affect him going forward in the book. Obviously, never really came up, but I just thought that was very interesting because it's always said that Neville had really bad memory, and then once you learn what happened to his parents and everything, it's like maybe it could have been more. So who knows? Yeah,
that's interesting. That's a neat theory. I feel like that is something I could see Augusta Longbottom doing. Like being like, this particular memory is going to traumatize this child forever. Yeah. I'll do some magic to get rid of it. But also, would that be considered a charm? Do we know if Obliviate...
Yeah.
Or, I mean, Obliviate's the first memory charm I think of. But I think memory spells would be considered charms. And we know that Augusta does not think charms is good. She thinks it's hogwash. So maybe the reason why she shit-talks charms is she did a charm on Neville and it had repercussions, and that's why she doesn't want Neville to continue in charms.
That'd be very interesting. Yeah, so she hates charms because she impeded her grandson, and then maybe moving forward, like he's not showing magic, and maybe she thought that she like broke him or something.
Yeah. These are some juicy Neville
conspiracy theory. But I'll have to look at where I found it. I'm pretty sure it was either on MuggleNet or it might have been in one of the MuggleNet books, because I was pretty active on MuggleNet growing up. But I remember it was before Deathly Hallows came out.
Wow.
All right. Do you have any closing remarks for this chapter?
My closing remarks are that being a Gryffindor sounds exhausting, and that if you're gonna get into a wizarding duel, you should probably learn at least one spell. Just one.
Mine is that Ron is a friend through and through. He will be the best backup you ever had, no questions asked. And Hermione's notionally inept, and it wounds me, but I love her so much. And that's pretty much it for us for this episode. We'll be back next time to discuss Chapter 10, Halloween.
Aw, Halloween. The best holiday.
Shayna lives on Halloween 24/7.
It is always Halloween in my heart.
Yeah. So now we get to see the Golden Trio become the Golden Trio. So as always, if you have any thoughts on today's episode, previous episodes, or future episodes, you can email us at potterrevisitedpodcast@gmail.com or reach out to us on social media at potterrevisited.
And if you're mad at us and you want to get into a fight, just meet us in the trophy room at midnight. We're totally going to be there.
Totally.
We promise.
And we will see you next time. Bye.